Good day everyone, I am Jem Rosenberg L. Achacoso and I will discuss to you the effects of learning, accuracy of self-correction. So what is self-correction? Self-correction is when learners correct themselves instead of a teacher doing it. Teachers can involve learners in self-correction to different degrees by giving learners more or less guidance as to the location and nature of their errors, and examples of good use of language to compare their own to. After we discussed the previous chapter in the discussion of the lesson on performer monitor and which rules are applicable for monitoring, we are now turned into the next question of how efficacious monitoring is. How much will the performer of the second language enhance accuracy by referring the conscious grammar? According to Noel Hook, self-correction is the most valid object of study in investigating monitor strength, since this is what one's monitor actually does in real performance. Based on the statement of Noel Hook, the teacher is using the self-correction of a student to identify the strength or the weaknesses of each of them and to able to guide students to correct their errors. Factors affecting self-correction accuracy. First, as we can infer from the discussion in Chapter 2, there is individual variation with respect to self-correction efficiency. To the extent that the conscious monitor is engaged in self-correction, this will be expressed in self-correction efficiency if there is individual variance in the degree and capability of monitoring usage. From a trained or professional linguist who is an ideal user for monitor, we could expect much better performance than from other performers, all other conditions kept constant. Second factor, we might expect variation depending on which aspects of output the performer attempts to correct. For basic morphology, the monitor tends to function best, may be less accurate for complicated syntax, and may have even more trouble with other parts of the grammar. This is because there is insufficient knowledge to speculate on the comprehensibility of much of the grammar. Hook, Robertson, and Krashen distinguish the following conditions. First, there is free speech or natural conversation. Self-correction is up to the performer and form does not have a special emphasis. Instead, in most situations, the emphasis is on communication. When looking at the grammatical structure errors in this state, we would assume natural difficulty are those. Second condition, moving in the direction or focus on form, can be termed careful speaking or writing. It's stated and happens when speakers or writers are trying to speak or to compose correctly. In order to predict more self-correction for writing, we have to subdivide this kind of condition into two sub-conditions. One for careful speaking and one for careful writing. In the third condition, the student is informed that an error exists, but does not know where the error is or what rule has been broken. This is approximately similar to the structure in which learners are clearly told that their paper includes certain mistakes and that they should be corrected. Fourth condition corresponds to composition correction, in which the teacher underlines the errors. It explains students that have errors on his or her paper, teachers are able to underline those errors, so that students will recognize their errors on the paper, especially for example on writing essay. And the fifth condition, the existence, location, and description of the violated rule are provided. The data. As we can see on this data in horizontal line, we can see the proportion of errors successfully corrected. While on the other hand, the vertical line, is the conditions for self-correction. The figure 4.1 or the data attempts to illustrate how conditions and differences in subjects affect self-correction accuracy and gives us a picture of what we can expect, at least in the domain of syntax and morphology. Fafman's formal students correct a higher percentage of their own errors than informal students do, and our subject, letter P, outperforms everyone. It is also consistent with the hypothesis that as we concentrate more on form, accuracy improves. Several studies, all classified as falling under condition 2, or the second condition, show that revisions are typically aimed at greater communicative effectiveness and not merely on form. Cited in Hatch 1979, Hassan noted the improvements in the second and third drafts of compositions made by ESL students. He reported that the students focused primarily on the choice of vocabulary, added minor specifics, and made fewer improvements that resulted in grammar improvement overall. Splu came to similar conclusions, noting that her subject seems to be closely observing their speech, but not for grammatical correctness. Their knowledge of speech was more based on their success or inability to express their message. Hook, Robertson, and Gratian noted that many of subjects' corrections were obviously attempts that enhance intelligibility rather than grammatical form. Other effects of conscious rules. Use of the conscious grammar we have maintained is limited to easily learned, late acquired rules, simple morphological additions that do not make an overwhelming contribution to communicating the speaker or writer's message. English speakers understand sentences with singular markers absent from the third person, and thanks to the inclusion of other markers of tense and grammatic information, have chopped standard past endings fairly well. There is nevertheless some real value in applying these rules when time permits, when rule use does not interfere with communication. Providing these local goods makes writing and speech more refined. Even though they make a minor contribution to communication, it adds a cosmetic impact that can be very important for many students of second language. In the advanced second language class, providing such polish may become the main goal, one that is quite justified for many students. Advanced second language acquirers, especially those who have been in a country where the target language has been spoken for a few years, may have acquired a great deal, but not at all, of the second language, sufficient to fulfill communicative needs, but still below the level of the native speaker.